Welcome to the Bellingham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, Thursday, April 7th, 2022. So I guess that's a motion to open the hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The first item on the agenda is a continuation for 350 Rentham Street. Since we waived the hearing from last time, do we need to have a re-noticing of the hearing?
No, we just need to simply reopen the hearing.
Okay.
Motion to open a hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And is the applicant with us in person?
353 Rentham, is the applicant present?
Or 350?
350? Yeah, are they on Zoom maybe?
Rick, are you representing 350?
That was Rentham Road.
Oh, it's Rentham Road.
Rentham Road, yes.
Is that?
Is that street? Okay.
Rick Goudreau, are you representing 350?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you state your name and then just your relationship to the project?
Certainly. Rick Goodrow with United Consultants. Our firm completed the plan the board sees before them this evening. Completed by my associate, Jim Susi, who's not able to attend the hearing. But I am here to speak on behalf of Mr. Dalpy, the property owner, and Mr. Tony DiMartino, the applicant.
Okay. Can you, so you're seeking a variance for a lot shape factor. Can you just walk us through what you're proposing?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. So the applicant has an agreement to purchase a piece of property which is approximately 186,000 square feet in size and has slightly more than 300 feet of frontage. The proposal would be to divide the property in conformance with the zoning bylaws with respect to the frontage and the lot area. So the two lots would have frontages of 150.81 feet where 150 feet is required. The property is located in a residential zoning district for your reference. The requirement of a lot area for a single family dwelling would be 40,000 square feet in that zoning district. For a two-family dwelling, the requirement is increased to 80,000 square feet of land area within this district. So as I had mentioned previously, both lots would have the 150 plus feet of frontage, and both lots would have an excess of 80,000 square feet, being 92,636 for lot 1, 93,670 square feet for lot 2. I would assume that the board has a plan in front of them that they can see the configuration of the lots that are proposed.
Yes.
So what we've done is run the calculations for the lot shape factor on these lots, which are approximately 900 feet in depth and have a width at the rear of the lots exceeding 53 feet, slightly more than 53 feet. So we've also looked at if we minimized the lot area and eliminated the back portions of the lot and did a calculation utilizing the 80,000 square feet as is provided just below the cul-de-sac of Rakeville Circle. The calculations are spelled out for both lots 1 and 2, both having build factors of 34 plus, 3409 for lot 1, 3450 for lot 2. What we've also done is we've looked at the bylaw requirements for a perfectly square lot. And that lot would meet the frontage requirement of 150 feet. And that lot would remain 150 feet in width and have 4 90-degree interior angles for the lot corners. To accomplish the 80,000 square foot requirement, that lot would be 533.33 feet in depth. So if we were to take the 533.33 by 150 foot dimensions and run that through the build factor calculator, that perfectly rectangular lot with 90-degree interior angles and the minimum amount of perimeter required to create the frontage, to meet the frontage requirement and the lot area requirement would result in a build factor of 23.35%. So in essence, the point of that would be that it is not possible to create an 80,000 square foot lot with the frontage requirement and the area requirement for a two-family house, short of having to exceed the frontage requirement provided in the bylaw. So certainly we could look at, the factors of a 40,000 square foot lot for a single family residence, which I think would be more in line with why the build factor was written the way it was. It was set up more for a single family house lot, which would result in, roughly 150 by 250, 60 foot lot configuration, if you will. When we looked at that minimum size, the build factor was in and around the range of 18 for a perfect rectangular lot for a 40,000 square foot build factor. Excuse me, 40,000 square foot land area with approximately an 18 square foot build factor. So we certainly recognize, the need for a bylaw and the need for a build factor. Our position and to the board is that the shape of our lot, we don't feel is irregular, which is what the bylaw is intended to prevent from happening. We think that the lot's having a frontage of 150 plus feet and 53 feet in width at the back and elongated sides are not what we would consider to be a typical irregularly shaped lot. And as I mentioned earlier, the difficulty or the hardship would be the fact that even if we had a perfect rectangular property, we would not be able to provide for a lot that was 90 degrees in configuration, met the frontage requirement, met the area requirement, and yet would not be able to meet the build factor requirement.
Okay. Yeah, I think the issue that I find is that I agree with you that it doesn't seem irregular. I guess the question I would have is just for hardship, is that to get a variance, you have to meet all the criteria. And to me, it seems a little bit self-imposed because this is speculative, of course, I imagine, purchasing it. So the applicant, you're kind of getting the land that's already a single family. You could build a new single family, but you're choosing that you would like to subdivide it. And then I also question about doing duplexes too. It seems a little bit, you purchased a property at a value of a single family property. So the hardship's kind of self-induced because it's reflecting the value of the land and property as purchased. So I guess those are the issues I would have. But I would open up to the rest of the board I'd be curious the rest of the board's thoughts.
If you ask me, I'm really quite curious where the hardship comes from. Again, we're taking a single family lot and we're trying to put two duplexes on the single family lot.
I
agree,
feel
it's self-induced.
I
hardship,
see
not-
yeah. That I think is the issue that I come across. Because there's not a financial hardship because you're looking to purchase the property, but then, which is, I understand to kind of.
This question I do have is, this gentleman is saying that there's perspective, but the application says they've owned it for 4 months.
Yeah, it is a good question.
Which one is it? Do you own the property or is it under agreement?
I believe Mr. Dalpy owns the property and has owned the property for 4 months at the time of the application.
But yeah, those are the hurdles that I guess I feel like it seems a little self-induced, and that a variance is the highest threshold to reach. That I don't know if it.
Sure.
Because we'd have to
certainly. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Well, I think we have a unique situation here. I think the bylaw of the town of Bellingham promotes multifamily dwellings. bylaw has a classification for two-family dwellings, and they have a specific set of regulations in the residential zone that speaks to that, which is 80,000 square feet and 150 feet of frontage. Obviously, the setback requirements, lot coverage, building height, excuse me, all would be incumbent upon the applicant to meet as they move forward with this project. I guess the hardship here is that you're not able to create a conforming lot that complies with your standards to their minimums. And that seems to be
I guess
a unique situation.
Well, I guess
Is
to
we-
the, oh, sorry,
we
I was
had-
gonna say to the bylaw, it cites for the variance is 240-12. And then it has to meet each of the criteria under B. I guess it's number one that I have the hard time with.
Well, yeah, because I mean,
To see,
if you own the lot, you're more than welcome to raise that building and put a home on there. But
because
we're looking to raise it, subdivide it, put 2 duplexes on there.
if I read it, it says, yeah, literal enforcement of the provisions of this bylaw would involve a substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, the petitioner or appellant. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Jim, I have a question. This property could be divided through an A&R, and then they could build 2 single-family homes on each of the lots? Is that?
So yes, an A&R is going to have to occur no matter whether they do single family or duplex. Right now it's 1 lot. I mean, obviously they could proceed as 1 lot, but as Mr. Goudreau had mentioned, the intent is to subdivide into 2 lots. I haven't seen anything calculated in terms of the single family, but I would make a fair assumption that lot shape factor would work for a single family, meaning 40,000 square feet, because as you know, through lot shape factor, you meet the lot area and then are able to draw that imaginary line to essentially shave off that tail that is what really lot shape factor is here to address. If I may, real quick, I did see a question from one of the public about what an A&R is. So that's my apologies. That's it's a subdivision of land, and it's quintessential Massachusetts law. It's entitled an approval not required plan, but it requires approval from the planning board in order to subdivide. So it's a necessary step in order to subdivide any lot. However, if you have the appropriate frontage and lot area, it's allowed by right. So it's essentially just bringing the plan to the planning board for their signature, as long as they have the appropriate frontage and lot area, which this has the appropriate frontage and lot area for a single family and also a duplex. However, for the duplex, as Mr. Goudreau pointed out, it doesn't quite meet the exact merits for lot shape. So that's a long answer to say very likely it could have 2 single families. But I don't have any proof of that at the moment. I don't know if Mr. Goudreau ran those numbers.
Yeah, I think we're pretty confident we could make a 40,000 square foot lot area requirement with a truncation of the lot, if you will, by that imaginary line you spoke of. I'm not concerned about that. I guess, I guess my comment to the board would be that obviously the zoning bylaws of the town of Bellingham are promoting 2-family dwellings, and that you really can't make that work with the zone.
Did we lose him?
I think we
Yeah,
lost.
I think he accidentally got muted somehow.
We have a list of residents too, just that you might want to see.
Sure
Do
we
a
do.
straw poll, who's in favor of using it.
Okay,
Well,
do we
no,
want any further
Well,
discussion?
before we
Right,
do
just-
that, the applicant needs to be present during
Right.
any sort of discussion.
Okay,
I also want, before we close the meeting, I want to bring something up about that.
okay.
weird side note, we do have a lot of residents here. Instead of people
That's
who not
great.
want to speak individually, but we could just say who's in favor, who's not.
Jim, do we see him trying to get back in?
Rick is still here, he's muted and doesn't have video at the moment. What you could certainly do is motion to continue to, the 7:30 mark and pick up the next application if you like.
Jim, question for you. We do have a butters here. Is that something we may be able, or wait until he can come back? Do you want to wait?
Right,
till-
I think it would be appropriate to have the applicant in
Sure.
attendance. There is
Fine.
another individual logging in. I'm not sure if this would be him.
I'm not sure.
Sounds good.
Right. No, these people that must be-
So do you need a motion to continue?
Let's do that.
Second
We'll go to the
Motion to
next one.
continue
Sure.
at 7:30.
Sure.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
So, up to you, Mr. Chair, what would you like to do? We have Lakeview, or we can go right on to the next hearing. We've got Pearl, or we've got Three Locust, or we could do Lakeview. Who's here?
Lakeview should be quick.
Yeah. let's do
Lakeview should be
Lakeview.
quick,
Yeah, let's do Lakeview. It would be
Okay.
quick.
yes,
That way then these folks that are here for this
Yes.
one.
sure,
we can
that
Get
works,
that moved along too.
sure. Angela,
Hi.
all of you.
And I'm just gonna recuse myself again
Yes,
and then
sounds
have
good,
Peter.
Peter, okay.
Okay, Angela. What are we
Hi,
here for tonight?
guys and ladies. I suppose I am here for an extension of the comprehensive permit and an update for you all.
Okay.
You want me to just get started, or I don't know,
Yeah,
Jim,
if
you
you
usually
don't mind,
provide-
we could find out what's going on, so.
Yeah, sure. So we've closed on 24 out of the 40 units in this phase so far. The final mitigation item, which is the work out on, is it Route 126 South Center, and help me out here. So
You're
it's
right,
south-
you're right there, yeah.
Yeah, South Center Street. That the traffic light and the road widening, the intersection improvements, that we've started, pre-construction on that. We got the easements that we need from, or that National Grid rather needs from the homeowners along the road, and they are working on their electric plans and stuff to move the utility poles, relocate the utility poles. They are a utility company, so they need a couple more months to work out the utility pole relocation on their end, but we're looking at starting construction in a couple of months, and we'll coordinate that with Don DiMartino. We've been working with him all along to get this done. We have the traffic light already in our warehouse, and I think we're expecting like 4 or 5 months of construction. So we'd be looking at finishing up probably in the fall sometime. Other than that, we got a certificate of compliance for the drainage work down on Silver Lake Road. That's why Sean's not here with me tonight. I'm flying solo because he's all done. And there are just a couple of other minor items, like we had it's a retaining wall that's shown on the site development plans in the open space between lots 81 and 82, which at some point over the years was built as a rock wall. So we've been working with the Conservation Commission a portion of the wall is in the buffer zone. So we're getting an NOI for the already constructed wall that's in the buffer zone. And then we'll be doing some wetland replication, some restoration of the buffer zone elsewhere on the site. There were, I don't know if I'm sure Amy did forward all of you the issues from a couple of the homeowners. the cleanup issues and
Yes, we did have that.
yeah. So, and then I provided just sort of an update on our end on what we're doing and our timeline for addressing those issues.
I didn't see the.
Am I missing anything?
It's right there.
That's the update?
Yeah,
That
it
was
came
on this
today.
one?
Yes. Mhm,
I read it.
mhm.
Jim, while we're glancing through this, is there any, beyond this, any other issues we need to be aware of?
Yeah, so Angela, the security for phase one, did you want to address that this evening or is that for another night?
No, not tonight. I
Okay.
did send in the security for phase two.
I saw that and Don DiMartino has been looking at phase one and I just wasn't sure if you wanted to move forward with that now. We'll just need a vote of the board at some point, so we can certainly do that at a later date though. Other than that, as Angela mentioned, conservation is taking the lead on a number of things for phase two to get that squared away. And we do have a security in place now, or getting a security in place now for phase two in terms of some drainage issues and concerns that we want to get rectified before, so we don't fall into the same pattern as the phase one. But everything seems to be moving forward in a good manner, collaboratively. And as Angela mentioned, yes, the rock wall on Lover's Lane will be brought likely back to the board for improvements or consideration of an amendment to the plan itself. But right now we're having that vetted with our peer review engineer just to confirm stability and functionality, because ultimately this road would be approved at town meeting at some point.
Any questions, guys?
I had a question in regards to, there was an abutter that had a question about the light shades, Angela, on his
Yeah.
property. So what's your plan on that?
Well, I don't really have a plan for that. We don't have a plan internally. The streetlights are ultimately going to be the town's responsibility. And it being a public safety concern, I didn't want to be presumptuous and suggest something that the town wouldn't be comfortable with. So I defer to the board.
Yeah.
And if you want us to, I don't really know if lowering the intensity of the light would make sense, or if there's something like a lampshade that we could install maybe on one side of the lamp. I mean, we're open to suggestions to fix to remedy the issue. I just would prefer to have the board's input.
Absolutely. That's what, I just brought it up because the resident wrote a pretty lengthy email in regards to some items he wanted addressed, so the board can.
Yeah, I think shielding the side that's facing this gentleman's house might be a good
Is
solution.
it like an overall glow? Or is it just like, if we shade one side of it, is it gonna do anything?
Is it?
I'm part of that group, but I'm waiting for you to open up.
Okay.
Okay,
to the public.
I just don't wanna do something and have it not be effective.
True. And would it fall under their responsibility or the town's responsibility? for
At
that?
this point, it's.
I don't have any other questions other than that light myself.
My other question is, are there any other items that you won't be able to meet from the requests or from the questions that were listed?
No, most of the stuff is being taken care of either next week, or, tree planting and grass planting. We should really wait until probably May to do that.
May.
So everything on this list will be taken care of this spring.
And
It's just the solution for the street light that.
there was a comment about the dust control. Is there any possibility you could do more about the dust mitigation? I know now, maybe soon as it gets drier, it's going to be more of an issue.
Yeah, dust control has been the thorn in my side for the past couple of years. I'm hoping this year will be a lot better than it has been in the past, just with the number of lots that are developed and the more area that's stabilized. I don't know if you remember, was it last year or the year before or both? We had some pretty serious dust uh, around that phase 2 area because it was all cleared and maybe not entirely stabilized for the whole summer. So I'm hoping and I'm confident that this year will be improved from last year, if not in good shape.
Yep.
But
I'm
we will
sure-
definitely, I mean, we'll have the water truck out there and we sweep the road at the end of every day. So we'll be doing what we can to mitigate the dust.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure the town and the butters would really appreciate more effort to control the dust. And I don't know if there's multiple complaints over and over again. Perhaps you can consider doing a monitoring system or just like a handheld monitor, just to go out, have someone out there, take that monitor, get the results, and you can say, look, according to EPA standards, this meets minimum requirements per day because we do a 24-hour average for the
So like
dust.
an air quality, yeah.
Yeah, it's called a dust monitor. You
Yep.
can, something you can rent or ask someone to do. I think
Okay.
that could it'll be a middle ground, so you can determine, okay, is it excessive dust or is it something that by EPA standards or just Massachusetts standards is acceptable.
Sure, we can look into that. It's probably even something that our environmental consultant who does the SWIP inspections might be able to do.
They might. Thank you.
Counselor,
You're welcome.
you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Jim, do you have any recommendations with regard to the extension of the permit or next steps from here?
Well, there are a number of action items that are going to be quickly coming up. It may be too soon to come back right in May. I know Angela, I don't know what your timetable is for the wall and the security. If you think it's realistic to just continue the matter until May, or if it's more likely, I don't want to waste everyone's time if you don't think it's realistic.
We can continue until May. I am probably going to be coming back end of April or beginning of May for the wall modification. So I think we were waiting maybe to get conservation approval of it first or do those kind of alongside each other. Yeah, we can extend. I mean, if you want to do 6 months, I'm totally fine with that, but I will be back before the board in the meantime on other items. That's all.
Right. So to your point, Brian, I think maybe just a short extension that way, if anything comes up in the meantime, we can address it while they're doing other items.
Okay, and then then with regard to any sort of shading of light, I don't think we collectively have any expertise or understanding of the problem. So
No,
maybe between now and whenever they come back, and I would suggest maybe June, that somebody from the town or Jim, whoever you suggest, Jim, however we can look into resolution for that light issue.
Right. Yep. So if it's street lighting that we're referring to, Angela?
Yeah, the street lamps. Yeah.
So street lamps currently are, paid for by the developer. However, they will be turned over to National Grid once everything is complete. So any action that's taken with the lamps have to be approved by National Grid because they will pay and they are paying and maintaining those moving forward.
So our DPW wouldn't have any input as to what can we do or?
So we provide recommendation early on as to the style, the type, and National Grid gives you a list of like 3. And they also offer whether it's LED or not LED. I believe for this one, it was a 14-foot LED, which is the town has transitioned to all LED when the opportunity arises. So no, we wouldn't have any say on the the strength of it. You know, we could always ask for another one or a reduction of one, take one away. But other than that, we don't really have a say in the matter.
So,
Okay,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I'm wondering then, Jim, is it, you can't do anything about the pole or the light, maybe there's some sort of large tree or something that shades properties from, I don't know. I don't know what the solution would be. And I know that working with the utilities is almost impossible.
Can I say something here? Oh,
Just a minute, I'm going to open it, Brett. I do want to hear what you have to say,
okay.
by all means. Angela, just so I can understand, are these on telephone poles, at every pole, every third pole? What are they?
No, so they're, street poles are, oh, I had the plan. They're, like, I would say every fourth or fifth lot, maybe. There was a lighting plan in the site development plans that we followed. And then, as Jim said, we reach out to National Grid and get the spec for the actual street lamp. And that's what we install. So, as well as like the wattage or whatever of the light bulbs.
All right, if no one's got anything else, I would like to hear from the gentleman here. We all good? I'd like to open up to the public if you say your name.
Hi,
That's
yep,
what we can
Mark
see.
McNamara, 42 Bryan Road. Right
Would you
across
come
the
up front?
street.
Any chance you come up front just so that these folks online can see you too?
Where am I going?
Right here.
To that.
X marks the
Right up
spot,
front of
just
the
for
pink
you.
sign.
Right there, the
Well,
white
marked
X.
out, all
Be
ready
careful.
for you.
That white X over there, that way
Oh, okay.
everybody
I thought I had to
in
sing or
TV
something.
land
into
can see
that.
you. There you go.
You have to send them one way. I'm kind of working backwards. The light thing, it doesn't seem as a big a deal as what we're talking about here. It's a four-sided lamppost that has 4 openings, but there's no glass on them. So put a fog piece of glass on them. They're probably, I don't know, 6 inches by 10 inches, and there's 4 of them. I mean, it's
So
a simple solution.
It's not a street light hanging off a
It's
telephone
not, you
pole?
can't plant the tree because the lamp's up 15 feet.
Yeah,
By the
that's
time you
true.
plant the tree for that high, it's inserting,
That is,
which I'm sure they can make,
Mhm.
4 panels
That is
and
true.
make them fogged out.
To
It'd
be
be a
honest with
simple
you,
solution.
that's why I wanted to hear if you was envisioning a big light hanging off a telephone
No, it's a
pole.
pretty lamppost. It's a black metal post that goes up 15 feet that doesn't have anything. It looks like they forgot to put the glass into it.
Mhm.
Every lamp we have over there has a glass covering up. This has no glass. It's a light with no
Yeah.
glass covering. So any type of fog light you could put over it would take care of the glare. It's a pretty simple solution, I think. The other things that we didn't mention, the concern, and I forget who was speaking earlier, but the dust that was the thorn in your side, I lived across the street. I've been
I
there
know.
for 30 years. It's not a thorn in my side. It's in my house. It's in my car. It's in my truck. It's in my kids. It's a menace. This dust is sickening. Michelle Delamar is our contact with the state, who's been on top of it, and she's been great. We can't let it continue. It happens, and they take care of it, and they take care of it once or twice, and then it happens again, and then I have to call the state, or I call Jim, or I call Michelle, and then Fafford takes care of it. We gotta do this on a regular basis. According to Michelle, this dust is a hazard. There's people living there. This dust is a hazard. It's not just that it's an inconvenience, it's a hazard to our lungs. So what is considered a thorn in your side is a health hazard to us. So I would appreciate not assuming that it's gonna take care of, not assuming we're gonna get a meter, that somebody looks at it. Now, I understand that it's the springtime and nothing's been done as far as taking care of the lots, but there's still a big mess over there. There's still a lot of lots, there's still a lot of construction being done, and there's still a lot of 18-wheelers and 10-wheeler trucks that are coming in and out, causing dust. And it can't be done when I make a phone call. It needs to be done on a regular basis, and somebody needs to monitor it. For this job and any other job moving forward when it comes to construction. So that's the other concern I have. The other one we'll mention that wasn't mentioned here tonight is, since this construction has started, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, there's been 18-wheelers, 10-wheelers, you have all your big construction trucks coming out on where South Center Street ends, Bryan Road begins for the next, say, 150 feet before you get to Celestial Circle. That road has been dug up and wires have been put in and has been repaved several times and patched. The road is all broken up, and is that going to be repaved from where South Center ends, Bryan Road begins to Celestial? Is that going to be repaved? Because that has been damaged significantly by the construction that's been done. And you said you were taking everything, it was all being taken care of. Is that something that's being taken care of? That was one of the things that I had sent in.
Don't think that's on the plan that road page.
I don't know.
Well, maybe it should, somebody should take a look at it. Now, hopefully you know what I'm talking about, where, again, I'm repeating myself, but South Center ends, and then there's two entrances to Celestial Circle. The one that's off of Bryan Road has been used significantly since this construction project started. And it has been dug up several times and patched, and it looks messy. Is that going to be fixed during this next final phase?
Angela, what's your thoughts?
It's
I mean,
150 feet.
I can have somebody go down and take a look at it, but it's, I mean, it's not something that we had planned to do, you know, from the outset of the project, just because it's not on any of the plans and it wasn't accounted for, but.
But it's your construction vehicles that are using it. Now, it's not, you know, a dump truck. It's 18 wheelers. It's your Fafford truck that delivers construction vehicle to that plant a number of times in and out on that road. You have your big front end loaders during the winter time that was plowing and using that street. I called the police a number of times because according to what I was told by the police department, if the vehicle does not have plates on it, they're not allowed to use the road. And they were using it. So if they're able to use that road, shouldn't they be responsible for fixing it? And if it's not on your plans, maybe it's something the town could take up.
And I can actually, I'll answer that for you because we're dealing with the same situation in our neighborhood where the construction has destroyed our road and it's been 30 years. At this point, we're now getting the road paved by the town. So it is a public road that they have access to.
They do, but not for the vehicles that aren't allowed to be on the road, in which those vehicles were on the road. But anyway, if it's not going to be settled today, I think it's something that that should be addressed because it is a public road, but it's meant for public access, not for construction vehicles, which was being used. And we have pictures, if we need to have pictures, that show that they were using it. So that, I think that's, and as I said, being a nice steward and being a nice partner with the town of Bellingham, would be nice to think that Fafford could step up and take care of 150 feet of roadway that you have been using to take care of the visit you did. So it would be nice to, maybe a nice gesture for the neighbors to take care of that. And then finally, I know again that you said everything is being addressed, but in the plans you showed trees and you showed a number of different things that are going to be done. Is that going to be done in the final phase now that spring is here? Is that going to be taken care of?
Yes, it's on the schedule to be, the trees will be planted and in May, beginning in May.
Good,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Angela,
Yes.
so we got a couple things in front of us, if you don't mind. Can we indeed, now that I see what this light looks like, can we have someone come down and take a look and see if we can't put some?
Yeah, so I guess I was not aware that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was not aware that there's no glass in the lamp, so I didn't even think that any of the street lights were on at this point. If there's one at the maybe corner of Celestial and Bryan Road, that might be the only one that's on right now. So we can, I can have our purchasing department reach out to National Grid and see what kind of retrofitting, you know, so anything that they can do to the street lamp to at least dim the light on the side of the house.
Okay, I definitely get it addressed.
Yep.
And I know we've been running around for several years. If we can indeed this spring into the summer be proactive instead of reactive to the dust and sand this year. If we can get a
Yes.
comment out of you for that, for sure.
Yes, and Mr. McNamara, I didn't mean to make light of your experience living next to this development for the past however many years it's been, but we will be, I can almost promise you the dust will be better this year, and we will do what we can to make it negligible.
I'll ask, I know it's gonna come of it, but if you wanna have someone indeed take a look at that piece of road, let us know what you think.
Sure, we can do that.
What else we got?
Anyone else from the,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got off my own tangent. Anyone else from the audience, in this project? Can I get a recommendation for continuance?
So, next, maybe bring it back to Jim so he could guide us on what we need to do next, because I'm not sure. Jim, your thoughts?
Yeah, just for tonight, just a simple continuation to May 5th, it sounds like is the most prudent.
Perfect, thanks.
So
Brian, okay?
Yeah, I would definitely like you back sooner than later, especially as we get into the season with dust. There's still gonna be issue with the residents.
Right.
So,
Sure.
Super. May 5th it is.
May 5th.
Great.
All those in favor?
Thanks,
We have a
Angela.
vote on aye. Indeed.
Thank you. See you in a month.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Angela.
Angela.
Bye-bye. Good night.
I'm recused, I can't second.
It appears Mr. Goudreau has returned as well,
Yes.
just in time for the continuation.
Yes,
Now you're back.
Yeah, thanks, Peter.
great.
Yes, I apologize. My computer decided to restart. By the time I got in on my phone, you had moved on.
Thank you for your patience. Sorry about
Well, I
that.
actually did my 7:30 zoning board hearing in Franklin, and now I'm back.
Okay.
Aha. What are we gonna do here? Where were we?
I'm trying to recall now. I guess,
We were talking about the hardship.
Yeah, that's
also
what I
about
was-
the build
We're
factor.
talking about single-family homes as opposed to.
that's right.
Duplex.
Brian, you mentioned about how they have strong likelihood of getting approval for 2 single family.
yeah, it's an almost by right use that they can divide this property with 2 homes, 2 single-family homes on this one lot.
Subdividing it.
Subdividing it, the
Right.
subdivision is almost by right, or it is by right.
The
So-
duplexes are another story.
Right, and to the extent that the town would allow 2 single-family homes to operate on the very same lot, as opposed to multiple, like 2 homes on one lot with the same shape. So that's what I think what we need to consider is they could put 2 structures. They could divide this property by right, put 2 structures by right onto this lot. The question is the kind of structures, because it's the same shape, no matter what,
Right.
you know, so.
Oh, you mean they could put 2 single families the same size as 2 duplexes? Is that what you're?
Yeah, they can do that without our.
But the duplexes will almost certainly involve more vehicles and cars and parking.
Right.
Yeah.
But the
It
The
requires more
variance-
square footage.
variance
That's true.
doesn't rise and fall on it's the shape, right? So 2 structures can go there,
Yeah.
and having two families, it does have additional impacts, but it's the shape. It's the
With
thing
the-
that is
with
making
the-
the variance.
With the duplexes, the lot shape factor comes more into effect.
Right, but it's the same shape.
Yes, but it requires a larger footprint, square footage.
So I guess that's what Peter's saying. It'll almost.
But but this one is just the shape.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the shape.
The regulation for the duplex versus the single family is different.
Yes.
So,
From it-
and again,
Also,
we're getting
factor.
to, the hardship of it. The hardship is, I'll just be blunt, you're not selling as many units, it's just Right.
That's, yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's.
It's
what I count.
self-induced hardship.
Yeah. Because the
Mr.
first
Chairman,
one,
if I may,
yeah, it does say involves substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, which it seems to me financial wise, I mean, they could still do the 2 single family and still be. Yeah. But Brian makes a good point that you'd still have 2 structures.
But why do we have a difference in our zoning bylaw? Is there a reason for
I
that?
think because, I mean, I think there's a density difference with the duplexes, even though the structure's the same, you're gonna have more people probably in it and more vehicles.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, good.
are you able to hear me?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Could I please have an opportunity to speak, or are you?
yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so, I mean, I understand the necessity to justify a hardship. I think that the hardship in this case, I think there's a few things we want to consider, and that is that these lots meet the increased lot area requirements for a multifamily, 2-family dwelling. So it seems to me that the provisions are to minimize the density is to create a lot that has twice the required area to allow for a duplex. In other words, a single-family lot has 40,000 square feet for a requirement. A duplex lot has 80,000 square feet. We've met that for both of these lots. Again, we've met the frontage requirement for both a single and or a duplex lot. We're simply talking about a lot shape factor. And our position is that the lot shape factor for a duplex lot, and the intent of the lot shape factor is to create lots that are regularly shaped, not irregularly shaped, specifically provided for in the bylaw. So the position here is, are these lots irregularly shaped? And when you take the calculations provided in your bylaw of a perfect rectangle lot that has the area requirement met and the frontage requirement met, it cannot and does not meet your build factor. There, quite frankly, appears to be a flaw in the build factor calculation for duplex lots.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just ask one question,
Yeah,
and I always want a simple answer to it. Under our bylaw 240-12B, section 1, please explain what the literal financial hardship is to us. You must meet all 3 of these for a variance in this town.
So, I'm sorry, could you say that again? I
Sure.
didn't hear that clearly.
Section 240-12B, section 1, please
Yeah.
explain what the financial hardship is. Because again, you have to be 1, 2, and 3.
that's where
So we're gonna start with number 1. A variance is tough to get. What is the financial hardship?
The financial hardship is that the property couldn't be developed for a multifamily use, as would be allowed in the zoning district, because you're not able to meet the build factor requirement. And the reason for that is,
But again, sir, the property can be used for other things, just can't be used for what you're trying to put there.
that's correct.
Okay.
I know that.
And that's why I get held up, because you could build another home there, you could build 2 homes there. We just can't stuff 2 duplexes or 2 multifamily homes there.
Well, I don't think it's fair to say we're trying to stuff 2 duplexes. We're exceeding the lot frontage and area requirements. And
So
you're quite frankly, short of having a lot that is significantly wider than the lot frontage requirement, the mathematical formula provided in your bylaw does not work. I mean, you're asking us to meet the requirements. We have checked the box, 150 feet of frontage. We checked the box, 80,000 plus square feet of lot area, and we can't, with a perfect rectangle minimum lot perimeter, cannot meet the build factor unless we exceed those requirements. So that to me is the hardship you're asking for, is that this isn't necessarily applicable. Now, I certainly understand the board has a different position. You're asking us for the hardship. The hardship is the bylaw provides for requirements for multifamily dwellings to provide a mixed use of dwelling opportunities in the town, and we're trying to provide that. And we're not able to provide that because of the build shape factor, which seems to be a flawed mathematical equation. I personally don't feel that these are irregularly shaped lots, and I certainly would not think that a perfect rectangle lot that meets the lot area requirements and the lot width requirements is a 90-degree rectangle would be classified as an irregularly shaped lot. I'm telling you that the
So,
build factor of that
yeah,
lot
I
would be
think-
23.
I understand that the equation doesn't work for your application, but perhaps we can hear from the building inspector about his opinions about
Well,
the bylaw.
I guess what I was thinking is that maybe, because we haven't talked about, because to me personally, if I was a neighbor, although the volume is the same, a duplex adjacent to my property, I feel like is different than a single family home. So I guess I feel like it might be, and that's what I'm saying, I think it might be useful to open it up to the residents, because certainly under this would be, there's no substantial detriment to the public.
From the building inspector right before that.
You want to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have my first.
Okay. Tim? Is he there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I understand what the applicant is getting to here. And I don't know the answer to it other than maybe we should ask for a continuance if the applicant is willing to continue, and maybe we could have maybe peer review look into it, because he has a valid point. If we have area and frontage for a duplex lot being increased, the way that the zoning chart indicates, and he can't meet the build factor that we have, it's kind of ambiguous, isn't it? I think he's got a point.
I think it's part of the bylaw though, Tim, wouldn't you?
Well, if it's incorrect and doesn't work, then something's broken. And I think maybe we should ask if he would be willing to continue it, and maybe we could look into the maybe it was taken into account, the lot shape factor for a multifamily lot. You know, if he's saying that the calculation, and I haven't done it myself, but if he's saying the calculation is a perfect rectangle lot, and it's not it's obviously not a irregular shape, because I've seen the plan, and he can't meet our build factor, then you know, maybe something's wrong with it. And to deny it if he meets all the regulation because the build factor is incorrect, to me, maybe we should take a look at that.
Not have to make a change to the.
It's really not. He's really not.
Something to consider later on.
Variance from it, but he needs a variance from it because maybe it's incorrect, is my point. So maybe we should take a look at that.
Thoughts, Brian?
I don't think that's unreasonable. If the law doesn't provide if he meets in every other way the requirements to put duplexes on the property, but for this mathematical formula, even if you take it to its logical, even if you take a conceptually perfect lot and it still would never meet it, then there could be either a flaw in the calculation or a flaw in the application of mechanics of this bylaw. So I don't think it hurts to.
Would that continue? Well, the next question, if it did meet it, let's say there's a flaw in it, that would take it off our plate. It wouldn't be a variance anymore, would it?
Yes, he
would take it out for the planning board.
No, he would technically need a variance because it is a bylaw. He would need a variance because he's not meeting what the bylaw states. And for whatever reason, you know, whether it's our fault or maybe an oversight, and maybe the lot shape factor should have been increased on a duplex application for a duplex
I guess
lot.
my question would be this, that if it did meet the build factor to begin with, would he still need variance to subdivide it to duplexes?
No, that's the build factor.
Well, the law zoning, so I don't know if it probably does meet the build factor as a single family. I'm not really sure. The way it sits, the existing lot with the existing house, he probably didn't do that calculation, but it wouldn't be that hard to do.
I thought
No,
he
we
had,
did not do that, but we certainly could. But what you have to understand is that the build factor allows you to create an imaginary area of, say, 40,000 square feet for a single family house. So to do that at 150 feet by, you know, roughly 265 feet with a perfect rectangle with this quote unquote imaginary line, which is provided for in the bylaw, yes, you would be able to meet that. I guess my argument would be, if this property was an existing lot, 150 feet in width and 533.33 feet in depth in a perfect rectangle, I would still have to be here to get a variance for a lot shape factor, because we would be at a lot shape factor of 23. And again, the intent of the bylaw is to prevent irregularly shaped lots. And I would find it hard for anyone to argue that a perfect rectangle 90-degree interior lot would be considered irregularly shaped. But it would result, as I said, in a build factor of 23.35. So that's above the 22%. So, excuse me, 22. That's allowed for the build factor. I mean, I understand the board's position. I understand, you know, the threshold to meet a variance. I know the difficulty to meet a variance, but this, quite frankly, just seems to be a lot shape factor issue that wasn't thoroughly thought out as maybe a second formula for duplex lots that would provide a little more latitude. It certainly appears to me that the bylaws are intending to provide for guidance to minimize density of a duplex lot by creating a situation where you have to have twice as much lot area. Thus, you have one dwelling unit for every 40,000 square feet of land area, which we have. And again, we have the frontage. We'd be obligated to meet all of the other bylaw requirements for such as setbacks, et cetera, as part of a building permit process. You know, obviously that would be incumbent upon the applicant to do. We're merely here, you know, to look at the fact of, are these lots considered irregularly shaped?
It's true, but it does still fall under the variance guidelines as well.
It certainly does, but I mean, I'm asking, is the opinion of the board, are these lots irregularly shaped? Because if they're not, then we don't meet the mathematical equation for the letter of the bylaw, which is why we're here for
I
the
guess my
variance.
question would be that, to me, I think two single family houses does not equate to the same thing as two duplexes to me personally. And I think that's why the bylaw has the distinction with the area. Because I know you're saying the same structures, but if it was next door to me, I would rather have I think the two single family houses speak a very different language than two duplexes.
Density of.
And that's why, I mean, I guess, I don't know, do you think it's a good, I'd love to hear with the neighbor, because I think that's the other third criteria is not substantial detriment to the public good.
But the,
What's that? I know, yeah.
in a, so I think what he's saying though is that even in a perfect world where they have perfect lots that are completely rectangular, they still wouldn't make it. They still wouldn't have that.
But they can do the two single families. Why do they need to do the duplexes? I guess that's what I'm confused about.
Well, no, we wouldn't.
More money, more money.
That's kind of what I would tend to agree with, but I guess that's what I'm, because I see he's saying, like, if you look at the idea of the irregular lot shape, I agree with them. They're not irregular lot shapes, but do they need to do the duplexes? That's not a hard jump. They could do the to the same thinking of like, what's the general purpose of it? It's the bylaw saying a duplex is not equal to a single family house in its nature. That's how I
There's
would.
an impossibility built into the law in this particular circumstance where they can never meet something that they could by otherwise.
But is it a catch-22 that if, say, he comes back
Well,
with it?
that's the hardship.
That's what I don't get,
It's,
yeah.
it's something affecting uniquely this lot, right? It's a flaw in the law and the application of the bylaw.
They still have.
Uniquely.
I suppose, I guess, do you think that it makes sense? Because I'd love to hear from the neighbors, but I agree, continuing it isn't, I'm okay to continue it, but I also feel like it'd be good to hear from the neighbors, but I don't know what do you guys think would be most helpful to kind of.
I feel like right now, based on the bylaw we have and the lot shape, we just don't meet it. And as the zoning board, we're tasked to apply the bylaws. That's what we go by, because we can't.
That's what confuses
We
me.
can't
to
allow,
see, yeah.
we can't allow variance if it doesn't meet all the requirements. So unless the bylaw changes after we get.
That's the catch-22. that I
Right, we
don't
research
get,
it,
yeah.
we have to research it and see its application on, on other lots. And if it's really reasonable, I think that's something we can assess. But at this point, it's difficult to make an assessment since there's no hardship met. And we're not meeting the bylaw requirements. And I too am interested in hearing.
Do you feel like a continuation to further look into the issue would be helpful?
I think it would be helpful to test the build factor set in the bylaws, and I think it's a part of our duty to make sure that bylaws are, can be applied to all circumstances reasonably. That's my opinion.
Art?
I think we should continue and get more information after we hear from the public, yes.
Yeah, you got, should we open it up?
Yeah, I just, and also think about the hardship financial. I mean, if you look at putting 2 duplexes in there, we put 2 huge homes in there, and probably financially come out the same way.
That's, yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
I think the duplex is practically, I mean, there's more turnover, obviously, I think, and then you have more vehicles and more traffic.
I think we need to open up.
But yeah, no, I'm gonna open it up to the public, just say your name and address. And thanks for waiting. It's
Michael Lucille Jarrett, 386 Rentham Road.
Come to the X.
Oh, yeah, come to the next. Thanks,
Sorry.
No, that's good.
You sat so long, we're gonna make you walk and exercise a little bit.
Need to repeat it?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Michael Jarrett, 386 Rentham Road. Direct abutter to the 350 project. I've been residing there for 44 years. We built when it was all open field. I have one question, and then I have some comments. The question is, if the variance is approved, does that give him permission to build?
Suppose if we were to approve it immediately,
Does it go to planning?
Then it's a 20.
It goes to
There's a
planning
20-day
board.
appeal.
well, first of all, you have a 20-day appeal period. Then it would have to go to the planning board.
Jim.
Oh, Jim.
Can.
Yeah, go ahead,
Oh,
Jim.
you guys nailed it. You don't even need me. It's good. 20-day appeal period, and then yes, it would have to go to planning board for an approval not required plan, which the board has 21 days to sign. And then it would need a building permit, obviously, from there.
Right.
Okay.
Here we are. I wouldn't be in favor of approving the variance without some kind of a final idea or plan. We don't know what they're building, where they're putting it, okay? It has to be almost directly on the street because he has his 300-foot frontage. But there might be a problem with that 300-foot frontage because if you're facing the lot on the left side or south side, there's a 20-foot easement of a natural gas line. Then he needs 20 foot from that gas line. And then he needs 20 feet from my property. So do we have the required 100-foot, 150-foot frontage from that property? Also, again, I don't know where he's gonna build, but he needs that direct street frontage, which would put him 20 feet from my house. Okay,
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but
yeah,
I believe that would actually go in front of the planning board.
right,
Be part of the planning board to
Right.
say, we can issue a variance or issue a variance, and the planning board turn around and say, no, you're too close. We can't approve this.
if you ever been on Rentham Road, I have one of the best maintained and kept properties on the street. And having a duplex 20 feet from my house will drop my property values and everything else. And things I don't need, and then having 2 duplexes. Now, I'm a retired individual. We have 2 or 3 cars. You have duplexes now, that's 4 residents. Today, everybody has 2 or 3 cars. Now, what are you talking about? There's a slope and a hill in front of the cemetery. I've had cars run over my lawn, demolish fencing from the high speeds. Just a couple of weeks ago, directly across from me, a high-speed car came, went over his lawn, rocks, flower beds and trees, and knocked down the utility pole. I mean, it's believe it or not, it's a tough street. And now we get all the heavy traffic from Attleboro. We got all people talking earlier about 18-wheelers. Ever since Rentham Road was repaved, redone, we got millions of cars coming up and down already. It almost needs repaving now from the heavy traffic. But in essence, it's not to be without knowing what's going to happen, where they're going to be located, what size. The original plan called for 2 residential lots. Does that mean duplex? Single family? So personally, I'm not in favor of the situation at the present time without knowing what the end result is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just come to the X and then say your name and.
Oh, yeah, I'm Sandra Lucia.
Oh, into that.
Yeah. I'm very nervous.
Oh, that's her letter. Okay, great.
Yeah, I wrote the letter, but I just got a couple more things I want to mention. So Sandra Lucia, 20 Wakefield Circle, and I'm one of the 5 abutters on the lot 2 side. We've been on Wakefield Circle, we've been there 45 years now. So we've been there 43, somebody else had the house before us. And it's a quiet, semi-retired residence. Now, I was thinking about this today, from Crook's Corner to where we live, I've never seen a duplex. It's all single-family dwellings. So that's my concern, that the proposed 2 duplexes will have a negative impact on our neighborhood. Because like he mentioned, you got 4 families, so right away 8 cars. Now a lot of adult children live with their families, so maybe 1 or 2 more cars. It's just like where they all gonna park, and then the friends, the families. And another thing about the 3 of us that abut it to the right, because it goes into that point. These woods, like, they didn't belong to us, but I've been protecting, my husband been protecting these woods from day 1. I saw somebody dumping a fence, I go knock at the brick house, 350. Oh, that's my nephew, that's our land. I told him to go put it in the back there, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm worried about those woods. Wait a minute. And so anyway, so then through these woods, it's a natural buffer from the cemetery. So you got the pipelines down there, the St. John the Baptist Cemetery. So we don't see it all summer, the cemetery. So that'd be a shame if not, they're gonna clear cut this. I don't know if they're gonna clear cut that land. What are they gonna do with it, The 2 lots, yeah, there's those 2 duplexes, but those people, 4 people are gonna own the 2 acres into the point. And one more thing, so we're losing our privacy. And then to me, when you see woods, it's a place to dump. And then people, oh yeah, just throw the stuff in the woods. But it's gonna be their land, but it's our backyard. Like, we only have how much from the backyard?
We have 300 feet. Our backyard runs 300 feet.
I know, but
abutting,
to the woods.
Oh.
When I walk out of the house,
It's probably.
the woods are gonna be like, our borders right
The tree
there.
line starts right at our backyard.
Yeah, so we're lucky if we have 1 row, a couple of trees, the whole length. So I just can't imagine that all gone. Yeah, the wildlife, the turkeys trot down, like all the animals. I mentioned that in the letters, a lot of animals.
Yes.
And I guess that's about it.
Thank you. That's a good point. Feel free to let us say, I don't know why that falls under the planning board, that you're just looking at the written words.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Sue Simpson, 16 Wakefield Circle. So I have a question where you're arguing the bylaws may not be fair or whatever. Wouldn't challenging the bylaws be a completely separate situation and what they're looking for? Wouldn't that be like, they'd have to do that completely separately?
I guess that's true, because that's what I wonder is the
I
catch
mean, it's
22.
two different-
I don't
it's two
wanna
different
have-
A bylaw change has to go to town meeting.
Right,
That
like
has
right
to
now,
be-
this is what bylaws are, this is what you have to follow.
Right.
If you want to challenge those bylaws, that would be a completely separate situation. So you'd have to go through all of whatever it takes to change a bylaw and then come back and try and do this.
That's what, yeah, I know. I agree. It
So,
is-
I mean, to say, let's continue and,
I guess that's why my thinking too was about to open it to the public, is that you have 3 criteria they have to meet. And if the neighborhood is not in
and like you said,
Our-
they can make plenty of money
on the 2, that's what,
on even a single house for what they spent on that property.
I mean, it would still kind of fall under the variance criteria a little bit.
Right, I think the distinction I think I would make is that we're tasked to apply the bylaws to unique situations. And there is some degree of subjectivity in how those bylaws are applied to the facts and circumstances of this particular application. So it's not that the bylaws necessarily defective and needs to change. It's that the application of the bylaw to this particular fact and circumstance results in something that is sort of unique to this.
Right, and that would be an exception to the bylaw, but you guys were saying,
But that's
you know,
kind
we need to
of,
look at the bylaws overall and see if their calculations
Perhaps
are correct.
At its application.
So it's two separate, it's an exception to the bylaws, we're changing the bylaws.
No, it's neither. It's the subjectivity that the board has. The variance is, like Brian said, is a high hurdle to cross from, because we're varying the zoning of a certain parcel. We're a unique parcel. We're saying just this area in this particular area doesn't have to apply to this zoning law. So it's a high hurdle to achieve, and that's what we're all struggling with. But it's not that it's never achievable, and there is some subjectivity, and to the extent that the bylaw has some ambiguity, then we have to really think about how we're going to apply the bylaw to the unique circumstances of this lot. So we're not talking about changing the bylaw. We're just saying, wait a minute, we've never come across where the bylaws, even if they have a perfectly shaped lot, it really has nothing to do with, in my mind at least, that what they're proposing to build. We're not, I've said this in other settings, I'm not the king of Bellingham. You know, I just play piano, this isn't my bar. We're tasked with taking the law and trying to apply the law in a fair way. You know, we call balls and strikes, that's all we do. So I think it's a reasonable request on the part of the applicant to say, hey, even if we have a completely square lot or rectangular lot, we can't do it. And that doesn't make sense. And so I think that's a fair point. So I just want to clarify, we're not saying, oh, we got to change the law and then, you know, it's just.
Okay, that's what it sounded like, is you were gonna look
Yeah.
into the law and see if it made
No.
sense and if the calculations were correct and.
this is one of the hardest things we have to do is variance. And we have to juggle it and try to make the best sense of the zoning bylaw, not just for the applicant, but also for the town of Bellingham, the residents of Bellingham. But just because something looks wow on paper, is it right for the town, is it right for that neighborhood? This is the toughest thing we're tasked with. And trust me, we're all residents and we feel every bit that you folks out there feel, because this is our property too. I shouldn't say.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Hey guys, so just I don't want to cut off anybody who may be in the audience as well. I just wanted to add just a couple quick things here because I know you guys have a long agenda, and just for the public's knowledge here. So this request is simply the shape of the lot, and whether or not the variance for the shape of that lot should be granted or not. The end result here is either 2 duplexes, 2 single family, 1 duplex. This is a buildable lot. You know, comments such as trees on other people's lots, that is irrelevant in terms of lot shape, and it's on private property. So I think what we need to focus on here is whether or not the law and is if the variance applies to this law, and this lot specifically. There are no impacts, no, I shouldn't say no impacts, but limited impacts in terms of adding 2 structures where there was 1 structure. And so I think we really need to focus here on the bylaw at hand, the lot shape itself, and whether or not it meets the intent of that bylaw, and the 3-prong test that the chairman brought up originally. I will note also that, this is a variance request. We can do a peer review, as was mentioned earlier, would be subject to an applicant's willingness to fund that peer review. And as one of the residents just mentioned, that would be kind of a separate and distinct matter that I'm happy to start looking into if this board wants, but I think it would be separate from this application.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
I don't know if anyone else from the public has a comment about the build.
But yeah,
factor,
that's
the
a good
shape
point,
factor
Jim.
specifically, and not about, the tree or
the location
Or the
of the
location.
proposed structures.
Anybody
Yeah, it's
has
just the shape.
specific comment about the build?
Yeah, do you want to just come up to the X and then say your name and address?
Everybody going? Good. Hello, my name's Robert Roy. I live right across the street. The 300-foot frontage, from what I was told in the maps and the letter we got, is 305 feet. If you walk into the lot, 10, 15 feet, you lost your 300 feet already. It's gone. It cuts that fast. So now I'm picturing, looking out my window, seeing 2 duplexes across the street. It's nuts. There's water that goes in there. It leaches into that land and holds like over a foot of water when it rains that out. So where's that gonna go? Back out in the street? They just redid the street and it's horrible. It's flooded. So now what's gonna happen? And, all right, so it cuts down real fast. So if you go down 150 feet, you lost almost 50 feet already. 4 leach fields back there. I mean, it just, nobody's done a plan on this and nothing. And you guys said it doesn't read the requirements, shouldn't be allowed. Let them take it somewhere else and see what happens. Sorry, but I mean, there's not enough land there for 2 duplexes. 2 small houses like ours. I wouldn't mind that. 2 duplexes, not good, not good at all. And just, if you go there, stand in front of my house, 360, when I look, imagine 2 duplexes sitting there. It's just, it doesn't belong there. Sorry. And it's gonna bring on the value of everything. More kids, more accidents. It's not a good area. Like somebody said, there's been a lot of accidents. Took the tolls out like 2 or 3 months ago. I mean, it just doesn't meet the requirements. I don't know what's to argue about.
We just,
Why do we have to come back? It doesn't need it. Go over there and look at it. It's just,
yeah.
It goes boom. And you lose 300 feet from me to you. You know, 300 feet are gone. It cuts that quick. So I don't think it should be allowed, but not for 2 duplexes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why, to me personally, I definitely think there's difference in nature between a duplex or a single family.
Oh, big
But
difference.
I think, as Brian and Peter and the rest of the board have said, that a variance, we just want to make sure that we really investigate everything. And
Right, well, there's not enough land for the variance. I don't know what's the argue about it. That's my opinion. They're living there for 40 years. Thank you.
Question that actually this gentleman just brought up. I'm not sure if Brian and Jim can say, do we need to be concerned for this variance that if was granted that he actually has enough room left to right to put these homes in, the size of the homes he wants to put in, meet the setbacks?
I guess would that be a planning board?
Is it a planning board? Is that the?
Well, I mean, it's a stamp plan. I mean,
Because
No,
we're just
what I'm saying is, it's a stamp plan, but
Jim can
Jim.
Are we gonna have enough room left?
Yeah, so guys, so we're talking about 2 acres and 150 feet of frontage. You could put a whole bunch of homes in there. You look around not to say that that's the appropriate thing. I'm pointing out that the neighboring homes have approximately 20,000 square feet per acre. We're talking about 2 acres each. Understandably, one good comment was referring to wetland potential. So that would obviously need to be taken into account by conservation when a building permit is sought. But 150, if we think back to all the different properties that the board has reviewed over the years, 150 feet of frontage and 2 acres is a substantial amount of land for one structure. And a duplex, while it is slightly larger than a single family home, would certainly have ample room to be within the setbacks of Bellingham zoning bylaws.
Okay.
So again, it all comes back to shape.
Mhm.
Are these mostly rectangular lots of a shape? Is it an irregular shape? And
Also comes back to the hardship and.
That's where I don't think the shape to
Also-
me is
Yeah.
irregular, but
We want to close the hearing and discuss it amongst ourselves.
should we, are there any other public comment? Maybe just one more? If you could come over to the X, then your name and address.
Ed Butch Flurry. I use my middle name, my nickname to allow 50% of the people who know me, that's the same person. Because if I say Ed, that 50% of the people know me as Ed and 50% of the people know me as Butch. 32 Rakeville Circle. Been there for amazingly 44, 45 years. Been there since 1977. I don't know exactly what constitutes in a regular lot. What is the absolute definition of that? But I live along the back of this land where it narrows down to 53 feet, of which there is a major gas line there that runs along. There's a helicopter that flies over that line weekly, checking things out to make sure nobody's fooling with it in any way, shape, or form. Probably the building inspector might be able to answer this question is, you have to stay away from that major line pretty significantly to be safe. I am sure they don't want any type of construction anywhere near that major gas line. That is a major one. It's all the way through town. A lot of power there in that line. They don't want anybody disturbing anything. That's why that helicopter flies over once a week to make sure nobody's cutting a tree or doing anything that disturbs that land. So that's, as Mr. Roy or Mr. Jared said, if you take that gas line and say you can't use that from the frontage because it's right there on the front, what do you got left now as you start to move over and over? You got to stay maybe 40 feet, I'd say, or 50 feet away from that line before you do anything. So leach fields, construction of any type, hang on. As far as traffic is concerned, where this property is located, if this were the property right here, this is the cemetery line. Right as you go to the left of this property on Rentham Road, it dips down. So you're coming up, you're blind, you can't see over the top of this hill, right at that property. So if you increase, I'm sure it's probably not your total jurisdiction as far as traffic concerns are, or accidents, as you've heard people say that occurs. But that's one of the most serious, dangerous spots there is. As you come up that hill, you can't see over the top. So if you've got, instead of 2 cars pulling out of there, 8 or 10 cars regularly pulling out, just a matter of time before somebody gets in an accident in that position. It's definitely. That's a concern. If you drive by there, you cannot see over. As a matter of fact, a couple of people have been killed over the last 40 years walking just over that hill, walking down by the cemetery, because as people come down, they're usually rapid speed at night, and that's where the accidents have occurred and people have lost their lives there, because it's a blind spot. One last thing, as far as the animals go, I know that's not a major conservation. I'm not a tree hugger, but I do see the foxes and it's amazing deer, what goes through there. And one of the reasons that is that channel that goes through connects to the golf course across the street. And that's about the only way that those animals cut across, I assume, because we see a lot of animal traffic for some reason. And there is a lot of conservation land behind us. Jenks Reservoir and all that continues all the way over to Pulaski Boulevard. Now, going back to one thing I'd like to mention, one thing about the irregular lot also, what defines an irregular lot? This is almost 2 football fields long to get to the back of that property. It narrows down to 53 feet. And now you've got a gas line that you got to stay away from or supposedly stay off of. So you are dividing 53 feet in half, 600 feet back or 550 feet over to those houses to determine that they've got the square footage that they need for that kind of construction. That seems a little irregular to me, but I mean, I don't know what the definition of an irregular property is. But it's a long distance from the road to the back of that property. It's a long way from those houses. And what are they gonna have, 24 feet going along that small section to constitute that square footage that's been claimed to be, that is there. It is there. It'd be a wonderful one family, and 2 families, I would be very pleased to have a 1 family there. You'd have a real estate, there's no doubt about it. A hardship, the only hardship I see is someone purchased this land, and the hardship is how much you're gonna benefit out of it. You're gonna do less with 2 single houses or 1 or whatever. That's the only hardship I see, unfortunately. So good luck, gentlemen. I think you do a good job.
Should we,
Can we close this?
No, I would suggest that we don't close it, we would just continue.
continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna ask for peer review.
I think that if between Jim and Tim, they could look into that issue a little bit more.
Do we ask the applicant though? Because would it be paid for by the applicant, the peer review?
Well, I think Brian is saying rather than a peer review, just among Jim and Tim, correct?
Oh,
Which
okay.
would require a peer review.
And maybe if one of them could consult with town council between now and the next time. I think that's probably all.
Okay. Jim, did you get that?
I volunteered.
Yeah, I'm
Ron.
certainly happy to chat with town council regarding definition and the new information brought forward. That's not a problem. I'm sure I can have an answer for you by your next meeting.
Great.
So then I will
Motion
to continue the meeting until, what's the date? May 5th?
May 5th at 7 o'clock.
Anniversary. We'll have a dance.
May 5th.
Second motion.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that continues to the next month. I just want to thank all the residents for showing up, and I know this is a long one, and we definitely do take into account, especially long-term residents and the neighborhood character. And we appreciate all your comments and for showing up.
Next
Thank
time
you.
have-
Thank you
next
for
time have
taking-
coffee and pastry.
Coffee and tea, right?
I want to know what my taxes are going up.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
diligence too. Good job.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
But no, one thing. And everybody, so 4 families, and everybody has 1 or 2 dogs, and then if they get loose.
All right.
All right, yeah, the next item on the agenda is 10 Pearl Street. Applicant and owner is Edward and Suzanne Domestico. Do you want to waive the motion, or would you like me to read the motion?
I would like to make a motion that we waive the reading.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and before we begin, I do want to just disclose that I do know Ed and Suzanne Domestico. They are family friends. That she did sell us our home in Bellingham, but I don't feel that it impacts my duty to serve and be advised in this. Just to disclose
I
it.
trust your judgment based on.
Okay. And this was the first I heard of it, was once I saw it. I go, oh my God, I know them. Let's talk again. All right, thank you.
Good evening.
Do you just want to state your names and?
My name is Ben Dowling. I'm an attorney. I have an office in Attleboro. This is Amanda Cavalieri. She prepared the plan that you have before you. In the audience.
Could we keep it, we can't hear over here. Could you take conversation?
In the audience with us are Edward and Suzanne Domestico, the applicants, the owners of the property, as well as Vincent Domestico, who is the son of the Domesticos. And I believe there's someone on Zoom, a neighbor who is here to speak in favor of the application, I think.
Okay.
Before I get into the details of what we're asking for, I want to give you a broad overview of the general plan. The Domesticos intend to seek a special permit from the planning board using the backlot division bylaw. And what they generally want to do is split their lot into two lots, a front lot and a back lot. They want to have their house situated on the front lot, and the plan and the hope after presenting to you all is to have Vincent, the son, build his home on the back lot. So the Domesticos would need a special permit from the planning board to do that. But before we go to the planning board, we need two variances from the zoning board of appeals. The two variances that we need have to do with the very discussed lot shape factor that you're all very familiar with at this point, as well as lot size. The bylaw requires a lot that is split in two in this manner to have double the area that's otherwise required. The Domesticos would need a variance. So what the Domesticos would need without a variance would be a lot of 80,000 square feet. They are seeking a variance of 48,000 square feet. Roughly speaking, the two lots would be a little more than 40,000 square feet. Their current lot is 86,000 square feet. The way that the area is calculated under the bylaw would require them to seek a variance of 48,000 square feet by area. The lot shape factor variance that they're seeking applies to the back lot. And the lot shape factor of that proposed back lot, as you see on your plan there, is 37. And the lot shape factor maximum is 22. The hardships that the Domesticos are facing because of this lot are multiple. One of the hardships has to do with the size of the lot and the shape of the lot. In this neighborhood, the Domesticos lot is an unusually shaped lot, and it's also an unusually deep lot, if you will. The Domesticos also have a financial hardship. If we can,
just in the old mat. Oh my God.
Thank you.
Trying to do my bad.
She's just standing old.
So if we can, the grand plan here is to have the son, Vincent Domestico, live close to mom and dad. And as you all are aware, the real estate market is very competitive right now. Vincent is renting, would like to move back to Bellingham, where he grew up. The Domesticos have owned the property since the late 70s, and so are certainly not real estate speculators or flippers of that nature. And allowing Vincent to build on the back lot would help overcome a financial hardship for the Domesticos. Although the lot shape factor is, we're seeking a variance for the lot shape factor, the lots that are created are, and there is some, you've discussed this tonight, there is some subjectivity to this characterization, but the lots that are created in this plan are, in my estimation, fairly regular and would be consistent with the neighborhood, that this lot sits in. I think it's also important to note that many of the surrounding lots, residential lots in that area are in the neighborhood of 10,000 square feet. The domesticos have currently 86,000 square feet. The lots that they are proposing would both be bigger than 40,000 square feet. And so would be, in terms of maintaining the character of the neighborhood, that is something that the domesticos greatly value. Although not specifically pertinent to your analysis, I do want to point out that the domesticos house is on that photograph on the wall. It was built in 1873, and the domesticos have done everything they can to maintain the historic character of their house. They take that very seriously. And the last thing that the domesticos want to do is to disrupt their neighborhood and to create a burden for their neighborhood. So if you have any questions, technical questions or any other kind of questions about the plan, I'll do my best to answer them.
One question comes to mind. What's abutting to the east of the lot, of the back lot?
Over here, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a right of way.
Okay, that's the.
Yeah, it looks like you
which I believe was in the 1860s was a rail line right of way. And the house, the domesticos house, was built by the station agent for there was a train station on that property in the past, and so that's an old rail right of way.
Yeah, my question was because it almost looks like a road, and of course it stops because there's parcels underneath. That makes sense that it would have been a railroad before. Okay, thanks for that clarification. The build factor is almost 3/4 in addition to 22, but being 37. Has the applicant considered any other options where they can work with the build factor? Is it possible?
There is another option that is possible. However, that option would, in our estimation, would greatly impact the character of the neighborhood. This plan was chosen specifically because of their desire to maintain the character of the neighborhood. The other option, that may be available, would be much more disruptive. I believe that the lot shape factor ends up being what it is because of this neck, if you will. And this would be for the driveway, would be for utilities. But the bulk of the lot, though, is very regular and very square. I mean, it's not a perfect square, but it is.
Do you know if you were to remove just that section, it would be would meet the build factor? If you were to not take that into consideration, this is out of curiosity.
You take the leg off.
If you take that entrance way off, would it meet the build factor on its own?
We haven't done that
Just out of
calculation, but
curiosity.
we could do that very quickly.
There'd be no way to access the lot.
I know. I was just out of curiosity in terms of the lot itself
Yeah.
for the reasons for that.
You do a real run up there, right?
So just
Yeah, can you
run
just
the
take the
trolley
railroad?
down.
Yeah.
I do have one question. I've got several, but
Yeah.
one thing kind of struck me pre-reading this. You talked about going to the planning board and I believe Board of Health. Are you really looking at using one septic for 2 homes?
No.
I thought I read something in the original.
So this is the first step.
I guess, yeah.
I've described the bigger plan here.
Yep.
Step number 1 is the zoning board of appeals.
Mm-hmm.
The board of health for the septic system, which we would need to have installed, would be step, I suppose, 3.
But I thought there was something in your original application
I don't recall.
of verifying whether the current septic would be adequate for 2 homes.
No, the plan is not to have 2 homes on one septic system. The plan is to have 2 homes on 2 septic systems.
This is when I read that, sorry.
I have this. Do you want me to read the section?
Yeah, could you?
Yeah, sure. Subject property is located in primarily single-family neighborhood with some neighboring multifamily properties. The subject premises is serviced by an on-site septic system. If this variance is approved and a subsequent special permit is obtained from the planning board, the petitioner would perform site design and analyses to ensure the on-site septic system for the existing single-family home and the proposed new home on the newly created lot are sufficient for relevant sanitary regulations. So it kind of, I got the same idea,
I apologize for that.
but it
That's,
just, it might have been just not worded that proper.
that was
properly.
poor wording on
Okay.
my part. The
Oh, I see.
plan and the intent is not to have one septic system serve two
And with
properties.
so we'll continue with that. I would think the lot one would have ample space. Is there space back there on lot two to put a septic in?
So that's a,
Oh, it's almost an acre.
I believe there is space
Yeah,
there.
you're right, it's
That's
almost
true,
an
that
acre.
is an anchor.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an acre, almost an acre. We would have to get what I was trying to convey in that paragraph, unartfully, obviously, was that we would need to have a septic system designed for the back lot. That's
It would be a separate.
a separate lot. I'll go on the record. We're going on the record right now that there would be two septic systems.
Thanks for that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, in the perfect world today, we've got, family and family living there, but 50 years from now, it's
Two septic systems.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's put that to rest.
Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
So lot two has 1.031 acres. Am I reading that right?
Yes.
And so what would lot two need to satisfy the back lot regulations
For the,
in terms of,
Would be for the area?
yeah,
You're
it
talking
would
about?
be for the area, they need twice the area, so.
It's
it would be
80,000? Okay. So you got the
For the back
44.
lot, yep.
so you.
I think you said it's like 43 or something like
So the
that.
variance we would need from you is 48,276 square feet. So to come in and not seek the variance, we would need the 80,000 square feet.
All right, so it's like 36. All right, so.
Now,
yeah.
just and this is because of the way it's calculated, we can't take credit for a lot of the net, if you will.
Okay,
So it's, I mean,
so you need a 48,000
Correct.
square foot variance.
correct, yes,
And then also the lot shape factor is,
correct.
Because it's the two variances. Yeah.
so I will say, sort of generically, that the shape of this back lot is almost quite literally a fork-shaped lot.
Pork chop,
that
yeah.
pork chop. So so which was the purpose of the lot shape factor. So I guess I'm struggling that this is like sort of a classic lot shape that the bylaw was intended to avoid. Could you speak to that?
I mean, I think that's a consequence of the back lot bylaw, which would, to implement this plan, we would utilize the back lot bylaw. And because of the shape of the domestico's lot, it's sort of a long lot or deep lot maybe. That pork chop that pork chop shape is a side effect of that. It's an artifact.
But that's exactly the kind of lot shape that the bylaw is designed to prevent. These pork chop shaped lots, right?
Well, I mean, my understanding of the lot shape factor is that the intent there is to maintain some regularity in the shape of lots. Okay. I suppose in favor of this plan, is the fact that the actual the lot where the building is going to take place, I think, is very regular. Of course, you must disregard the
8,000 extra square feet.
the dog leg of it. However, the main part of it is a very regularly shaped piece of land, in my estimation. And you know, the two lots that are being proposed are very much consistent with the nature with the larger setting in the neighborhood. Yeah.
One other thing just to note, and again, Ben's doing a wonderful job at explaining all the language associated with this, the variance being requested. But as far as the backlot subdivision goes, which is a special permit that we do need to go through the planning board, is it does allow the reduced frontage, provided that such a division be authorized by a special permit through the planning board. So we're going against two different regulations and different boards to be able to do not only the backlot subdivision, but also be able to build on the area that we have. So in order to get the backlot subdivision, we are able to have 50 feet of minimum of 50 feet of frontage, which would in essence give you your pork chop shaped lot. So now that's something that we would have to go through after. So just because we may be able to get the variance through zoning board, we still do need to go through planning board as well.
That's the step 2.
That's step 2. So there are a couple steps in the process in order to get just the lots being separated approved. So it would be ZBA first. And that's where the shape factor comes into play, which is a product of being able to do the backlot subdivision, which we need. We also need approval through planning board, through special permit. So that's not even something by right.
So if we look past sort of the classic shape of a pork chop lot, a 48,000 square foot variance is a full acre, right? Or acre plus variance that you're asking for. That on an order of magnitude, that is a significant variance that would require, I think, some unique circumstances that I want, so again, it's not my bar, I just play piano. So I wanna do what the family wants. It makes sense for them, but in applying what we have to apply to the circumstances of this lot, it's a square lot to begin with. It's a big lot, but there's a big lot next to it. Just because it's a big lot isn't something that's unique to the soil or the topography of the land. That the hardship is flowing from the uniqueness of this lot. So if you can help me connect the dots, I think that would help all of us try to get you to where you need to be. But I just don't see the connection to what we have, where we have to go.
You know, I think something that's important to keep in mind here is that the lot size for this district is 40,000 square feet. Putting aside the backlot bylaw, putting aside the shape factor bylaw, if we just look at what did the bylaw want to do here, the bylaw wanted 40,000 square foot lots. We're doing that. So I think that this plan is consistent with the bylaw.
Can I be devil's advocate though?
I'm being devil's advocate to what you had just said.
Let me
So
challenge you on this. The bylaw though is intended to discourage backlots and said, okay, you can have backlot, but you gotta have a whole bunch of extra land, so we're not crowding.
I agree. Maybe there's a tension in the bylaw here between the backlot bylaw and the intent of the, I mean, to play devil's advocate to your position, I'm not sure that, and I could be wrong, I don't know that the bylaw speaks specifically to pork chop. lot, shaped lots, does it? As far, does it refer to them as pork chop?
I don't know what the actual verbiage, but pork chop.
He
is-
just said,
under the
he
back.
hasn't had dinner tonight, so.
It looks like a pork chop.
Well, I guess my point is that there may be a tension between the back lot part of the bylaw and that other part of the bylaw. And I think that's what you're wrestling with.
Yeah.
And I understand, I understand sort of the struggle you're having. But the lots are 40,000+ square feet. Approval of this plan is not going to derogate from the intent of this bylaw. To me, the big the thing that the aspect of this plan that really highlights that is the size of the two lots that are being created, and the very sincere desire on the part of the domesticos to maintain the character of the neighborhood. I think that there's ample proof that they take that very seriously. Every application, you mentioned this before, I enjoyed your discussion in the previous.
I'm glad you did.
I actually did, and I agree a lot with a lot of what you were saying in terms of every application, every piece of property is unique, and the board has quite a bit of judgment, and they're not easy judgments to make. But on balance, I think that this one has a lot of things going in its favor. Certainly, it is a variance. It's a high bar to meet. There are things that are going against it. Absolutely, you pointed them out. But on balance, I think there are quite a few positive aspects to this plan.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
I have to agree with Brian. I mean, that size variance is absolutely huge. It's kind of, again, the intent of the bylaw that if you want to do this, you have to have a decent amount of space. But we also, it's just one aspect of a variance. The actual hardship of not approving and not approving this, that's another step of the variance. And where's the hardship actually come from? So, I mean, the hardship is a real financial, it's in our bylaw.
So, certainly, and then, so the Vincent, the son of the domesticos, in the plan, if this is approved, is to build his house here. The real estate market is crazy, or is not crazy. That's the bad way to put it. The real estate market is very competitive right now, and that's a financial hardship that the domesticos are facing. If we can think down the line into the future, the domesticos have been in this property since the late 1970s. Vincent grew up in Bellingham. He intends to make Bellingham his long-term home. His parents are, they're not, well, if they're not elderly now, they're going to be elderly. They're going to be elderly at some point in the future. There is a foot in Massachusetts right now. There are mother-in-law apartments popping up everywhere. There are multi-generational properties popping up everywhere. This is, if in a way, this is that in a different set of clothes, because Vincent will be next door to his elderly parents. If there's financial hardship in caring for elderly parents.
With that being said, Vince, are you sure about this?
Yeah,
just saying.
I've given a lot of thought to it. I'd also note that professionally, I'm a financial advisor. Part of what I do is engage people in long-term care planning. So I'm quite familiar with what he's alluding to. The costs that could be incurred here if I were to make my life somewhere else and had to pay for home health aides for my parents or what have you, as opposed to being a resource right next door. I think mathematically it's demonstrable that that's probabilistically a pretty serious hardship, which is likely to be faced. With two living parents, the likelihood, they may not like to hear this, that one of the two of them would require care absent my being in the neighborhood is north of 50%. It's like 70%.
Not so quite like
So,
statistics.
so,
Not quite like statistics.
yeah, I mean, my intention is to make this my own. My brother lives around the corner in Franklin. He has 2 little children. I'd like to have children here as well, to be near my parents, to have them involved in helping my kids to grow, my nieces and nephews and so forth. So that's my piece. I could expound on that a little bit, but I think I've said what I want to say.
No, thank you.
Can I ask just another question? This would be to Jim. What's been the response just of the neighborhood? Have you gotten any, has there been any people contacting or was there?
There
Oh, go
may
ahead.
be some people in the public for public comment. I haven't received any. I don't know, Amy, if you received any concerns or comments.
No, there may be some in the chat, though. I do see 2 people in the chat.
Can I speak? This is Gary Bastrak. I live at 11 Pearl Street.
Do we want to hold off until opening it to the public?
Yeah, why don't we just do it properly?
Yeah, we'll do it properly. Okay.
So I get the financial part of it all, but that's not, that kind of hardship is not part of our analysis, unfortunately. It's a financial hardship flowing from the topography of the land. Something so unique to this lot, the way it's contoured, the way it's shaped, something so unique to this, that is the origin of this financial hardship. It's not, the real estate market generally, in which I completely agree. And I think it's admirable and great that you want to live near your family. And something that crossed my mind as I was listening to your presentation is that perhaps an in-law apartment is more appropriate with that kind of hardship in mind versus the kind of hardship you need to get this. So it's, like I said and you all said in the other hearing, variances is so hard. It's such a high hurdle that if you don't hit the marks, because it's such a unique ask, and it's not a desire to say no or to make your lives difficult. It's not. It's just I just don't see it, and that financial hardship is just not the kind of financial hardship we would need to apply the law as we know it. So if there's a hardship flowing from there's ledge all over this property, and this is the only place you can do it. There's a slope onto this property, and this is the only way you can do it. That's one thing. But the kind of hardship we're really looking for is something to do with the lot itself.
I mean, Brian, you brought a phenomenal point, actually. Without going through all this, I mean, I know you want to have a home separate from your parents, but you've got enough room to put one heck of an in-law in here. I mean,
If I may, I'm the owner. That is, I guess, something that would be a slam dunk. I'm also in the industry. I manage, as Brian knows, federal state construction projects. And I don't want to appear overbearing. I don't want to appear as if I'm presenting something to the board that they would find to be abhorrent. My lot, I can build a 2-family on. I can knock down one of the most beautiful homes at Bellingham next week, apply for a permit, and have a duplex. So we're not doing anything on this 2 acres of land that I couldn't do absent your approval. But we very, very much love this Victorian home. We would welcome the board to come and see a home that, as Brian knows, I'm in the industry.
Yeah.
We have kept pristine. But given a choice of where my son could live in the world we live in today, and a pork chop lot that may not meet all of the intent, but certainly that's why there is a zoning board and the zoning board of appeals. That's why there's latitude within, excuse me, within the law. And I would ask that you keep that in mind, that 2 people, different families, can live on this lot. It's just not that they can live on it with a beautiful Victorian house that is currently there.
Do you want to
One other.
add to that?
I'd like to add. The hardship with regard to this lot is that there is area in this lot to comply with the lot size for two lots. The district requires 40,000 square foot. If, and I'm going to ask you to use your imagination, if the lot were not shaped rectangularly north-south, but were shaped, and this has to do with the shape of the lot, which is unique to this lot in this district, were shaped rectangularly east-west. The domesticos could split that lot using the Form A procedure in front of the planning board. That is a unique hardship directly connected to the shape of that lot, which would give you ample grounds to grant the variance. And I believe there would be case law to support that.
Large rectangular lot.
The shape of the
A
lot.
large rectangular lot is not an irregularly shaped lot, and I would say that there's one right next to it.
Which doesn't have the required frontage for the lot.
Right.
And never did. Yet at some point in time,
Look, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. We're tasked with these horrible decisions, and we have to treat everybody. Yeah, I don't care. You know what I mean? I don't care. I think it's fantastic that you live near your family and your children grow up all together, and I think that's great. But we can't say, okay, just go ahead. And we just can't do it. And
well, you can do it with a variance.
you can, as long as you hit the marks.
Well, again, if we hit the marks, we wouldn't need a variance. I believe if we didn't have an appropriately sized lot in the town of Bellingham to build a single family house, or a lot that didn't meet the frontage requirements to build a single family lot, we would have to seek a variance. The variance is based upon the fact that what you're proposing on that piece of land does not meet the basic requirement. However, that does not mean that the board cannot grant the variance to build that. I may have 100 feet of frontage and 300 feet back, but within the general neighborhood, it fits. The neighbors like it. We have folks who would support us here, and the board grants the variance. That's what you're doing, and that's what we've asked to be done. As our attorney and our engineers have said, the neighborhood is far less as far as sizes of lots, frontage of lots, than this would be, with the exception of the 50-foot to get to the back. We dwarf, in Vincent's proposed lot, would dwarf all the surrounding lots. So a literal interpretation, although you may stand on that soapbox, I would suggest that that is exactly what the board is here to do, is to weigh what is going on. How do we interpret and how do we assist in furthering the town of Bellingham? And I, again, as the father, of course, I'm biased. I would suggest that a house in back of this beautiful Victorian would be an enhancement to the Burl Street neighborhood, would be an enhancement to the folks who live in Bellingham through my son, and potentially his contemplated wife and children. So again, the variance is what you do. You do not only assign to the letter of the law. If so, there would be no variances. So I would challenge you on the fact that you can't grant a variance because it doesn't meet the requirements. That is what the variance is for, is because it doesn't meet the
I agree that that this probably wouldn't be necessarily detrimental to the neighborhood. But you have to get there, you got to hit the criteria. You have to hit it.
So that there are no undersized lots in the town of Bellingham recently that were less than 40,000.
I'm talking about this lot.
But we're talking about the process. And you folks have the process. Each one of you has a vote. And within, much as a jury, within the process, you have latitude. And that's all we're asking.
So I guess
Is the latitude to do what is in our estimation, our neighbor's estimation, a very fine thing to do within the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I know, like Brian said, that it is hard on the board because, especially compared to the last applicant, when it's, you know, a long-term resident and trying to do something, you know, admirable for their family.
I hate variances.
But I think I guess the thing I was going to point out was just to go back to the bylaw, I guess to Brian's point about the meeting the numbers, because I feel like I could see the meeting the substantial hardship. It seems like, and I don't think I don't see it being detrimental to the public good, but it's the number 2, the B2 that you're referencing, Brian. Is that
which is B2?
That is the owing to the circumstances relating to the soil condition, shape, or topography.
It would be the shape. It's the shape.
So that's the.
Would it help if?
But I guess I know, again, it's obviously open to interpretation too. But
Mr. Chairman, if I
Jason has.
Oh, Jason, yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. Jason Berthollet, I'm an alternate member on the zoning board. I think the biggest hurdle that we have on this is the 240-38-2, which says that the frontage must be twice the lot area required than the back parcel, right? So that's the 48,000 square foot variance that they're looking for. So I mean, the lot shape and the pork chop is fine, but I think that's the bigger hurdle, right, for this.
Oh, that's the one you were saying, Brian, too, about that. It's the area. Good point.
But, you know, and I always like to play devil's advocate. If we read the very last sentence in subsection 2, or structures not affecting generally the zoning district which is located. That allows you a little more interpretation.
Yeah.
The structures generally in the zoning district are in lots that are 10,000 square foot in size.
I mean, I guess, and I don't want to bring up a previous applicant, but I guess the issue I take is that the previous one, which is continued, we're kind of jumping through hoops to do all this math and everything for speculative developer to flip it so that they can get their double duplexes and get even more money. But here you have a long-term resident looking for something more.
So I would suggest that
that goes, I guess, again to the gray language interpreting what the intent of the bylaw.
Well, no, I mean, in the previous applicant.
Because that's the issue I had with the previous one is sure they want the double duplexes, but that's.
Yeah, but I think and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Brian, we haven't heard from Heidi or Ryan yet. We need to interpret as a variance all these individually.
Yeah, so you do have.
We can't look at, oh, what happened here, what happened there. Everyone has to be individual because they meet these criteria individually.
Yeah, and that's why I don't want to bring up the previous one, but.
Sorry to interrupt
you. No, the two variances that we looked at this evening, I think, are distinguishable. The other ones, they fit the requirements, right, otherwise, but for a shape factor, and the question really is the shape of their lots really that odd? And then generally, did they hit the hardship requirements and everything else that they have to hit? This is creating, this proposal, well intended, is creating a pork chop shaped lot, which is the intent of the shape factor bylaws is just to prevent these kinds of lot shapes. Secondarily, or primarily, it is also a 48,000 square foot variance.
Yeah, it is a lot, yeah.
So it's too significant asks for this particular proposal. And if I try to look at it objectively, not looking at the well-intended nature of the proposal and all of that. Just looking at the black and white letter of the law, it's not even close. 48,000 square feet?
That's,
No.
I mean, it's a good point by Jason.
Pork chop.
That's the larger
Right.
ask.
Pork
That's
chop
true.
shaped lot, it's just, and there is nothing unique. There is nothing unique about this lot other than it's large. There's no, I agree that we do have some latitude and discretion within the context of the applicant shall, provided, there's some mandatory language that we consider those specific criteria. It's shall, so I'm not trying to be a hard guy.
No,
I would love to just wave my magic wand and make this happen, but I haven't heard enough to connect the dots.
To put the size of the ask, if you're hung up on the 48,000 square foot, but to put the size of that ask in perspective, I think you have to look at the neighborhood in general. And the lot that's being created here, although on paper and in numbers requiring a significant deviation and variance, I will grant that to you. But you have to grant, that the lot that's being created for this neighborhood would be much larger than the other lots in the area. So I think that puts the.
But I'll interrupt you, not for backlot. Not for backlot. It has to be twice the size it is.
In relation to the other lots in the neighborhood.
But there's no other backlots in this neighborhood. So it's not, you can't say this, if it was its own parcel, sure. But there's a backlot. It needs to be twice the size it is. I mean, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm struggling just like the rest of you with.
Do we want to, I guess, I'd just be curious to hear from Art and Ray.
Well, I would agree with Brian. It is a stretch to have that variance for 48,000 square feet. The lot shape factor is an issue as well, but I go along with Brian, and I think that the lot size is even a greater issue than the lot shape factor. And then I just have one question: have you considered a family apartment, which would not require this high hurdle that we're trying to attain here?
That's not something that is desired at the time, right now. That's less than optimal.
I understand that, but you're really trying to cross a high hurdle here with that amount of land that you're short. In cases, where it may be close is one thing, or even more than close, but this is far from being even close to what the bylaws require.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm on par with what Brian, Peter, the whole board has been saying. You are kind of, you have a little bit of, you have some hardship. And I really respect the fact that you're keeping this historical, beautiful structure. I have so much respect for not touching historical structure. That's why I love Boston, I love Europe, I'm in civil engineering. I have all the respect for that, but I do feel that the shape created here is self-imposed. Let's say it is impossible. You need the 48,000 in order to make this lot meet the requirements, right? Or can you go down more into the main lot to have the back lot conforming by any chance? Can you cut more into the?
Would that make the front lot?
Then you create.
Oh, maybe the front
The
lot.
front lot would be less performing.
Yeah. So there's no balance.
There's no balance.
There's no balance. That's the reason, right? There's no midpoint other than the choice of changing.
Well, but as you say that though, if the back lot was bigger.
Yeah. would that number work if you were to
You know what I'm saying?
drop,
Removing
take
that.
more from the lot number 1 and give it to lot number 2? Is it possible to get it conforming based on the calculations? I'm just imagining here, since your shape factor is based on the addition of your perimeter over the area, was that
It's the perimeter squared over the area.
the perimeter squared over the area? So by giving it more of that perimeter,
You're kind of saying that with the leg, you're making the leg less by.
yeah, you're making less lead,
Yeah.
giving it more. I know it's
With regard to the shape factor, you mean?
right.
I mean, you have to understand, our job is to interpret the bylaw for the best of you folks, residents of town, but also to try to make it work somehow too. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's something workable. As everybody has stated many times, the variance is a very big requirement for us, and I would love to just be okay with, let this happen, but our duty is to apply the bylaw.
I suppose the question, I think that's a very creative idea. I suppose the question is whether if the other board members would be more amenable to the application. I haven't done the math, but assuming that we did do the math and we did redesign the plan, would that make?
Would you no longer require a variance at that point? It was kind
I
of
think
my
you're still
follow-up
gonna
question.
require a variance.
You're still gonna require one.
Still, I mean, even if.
And you'll have an additional one now because you're shrinking the other one.
I don't want to make it more
Doesn't
complicated.
bring it
It's kind of just a
together.
hypothetical question. Would this make it any easier?
Or would it make it worse?
I don't want to make it worse. That's why I'm asking
Yeah,
the question.
yeah.
Peter, you probably think.
But right
that
now,
it'll make
the
it worse.
2 variances are for the back lot. Yeah, would it make one of the variances then be for the front
Right,
lot? I'm not sure.
It was just kind of a general question, seeing if we can get around having 2 variances, which is, so that's a big ask from the board. This is my opinion. And
So if I may, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Ray, you're right.
Ray. If I'm hearing Ray correctly, and please, any other members of the board jump in, what you're saying is if this lot only needed 1 variance, it would be an easier hurdle?
I'm just wondering, and the hardship exists as well, so that's another thing I would have to
Well,
still discuss.
hardships, I believe Ben has stated them.
Right. It went to financial hardship to an extent, a lot of times it's what I see is families cannot move out. There's no option of being elsewhere, and they're really limited by their current situation. They have to add this extension to the house, otherwise they just simply cannot move out. That's not an option. So that's how usually financial hardships are seen. Perhaps the board might agree. And the second thing for the shape, typically it's you have a slope right in the middle, or you have a huge boulder right in the center, not allowing you to do anything else other than build this pork shop shape. So that's how I interpret the bylaw in terms of the hardship and for the shape and the financial hardship. So
I think to answer your question, Woodrow, don't know if it'll make a difference, but the ask for the 48,000 is just such a big ask that if the lot were to be bigger, we'd have to address it, but that's such a high hurdle to come to. That 48,000 is huge.
Well, I'd like to, well, I guess it's somewhat of a question, somewhat rhetorical, I guess, but also just a general observation about what is the purpose of these bylaws. I mean, the ultimate purpose is to enhance the community of Bellingham for the betterment of the residents, for the betterment of the town. In the law, I'm not a lawyer, but I am acquainted with it somewhat. I do serve actually as a hearing committee member for the Board of Bar Overseers, that's separate, but I do have some awareness of what I'm about to say. Oftentimes, you'll get caught into a trap of a commitment to technicality as opposed to a commitment to justice. What the purpose of these bylaws is not, as a general law of nature, we want to avoid pork chop shaped lots. That in general, in a typical circumstance, that would be a poor thing to implement for the town. But in some cases, it would, in fact, such as what we presented, be to the betterment of the neighborhood and the betterment of the town. And as my father alluded to earlier, from our point of view, that's the the reason that the zoning board exists to grant a variance is, where the technicality is an affront to the justice and to the higher purpose that the town is seeking by having bylaws and such.
I'm not a lawyer, but once we look at this circumstance and we allow it to happen, next time someone with a very similar shape comes up to us, just by going back and, having a preceding precedence of accepting such a case, we'll have to allow them to do it as well.
The zoning board would not be bound by precedence.
Okay.
You wouldn't be, by granting this variance, you would not.
Case on its own merit.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You would not.
Everyone that comes in front of us sins.
Okay.
And as much as I want to go back to my mind and reference this one or that one, I struggle not to, because I need to look at just this for these residents, these neighborhoods, these neighbors, what's right for them.
So going back to what you were saying, yes, there are instances, and that's the whole reason for the zoning board to grant the variances where something is questionable or won't meet the requirements. And so we do take that into consideration. And but it's 48,000 square feet. It's more than just a small amount to take into consideration. Not to mention the logic factor.
I suppose another thing to consider is, what human being is negatively impacted by granting the variance. To my knowledge, nobody. We've spoken to our neighbors about this. They think that this is a favorable thing. Certainly, our family would benefit. The neighborhood would benefit. It's an imaginary exercise that there is somebody somewhere who is going to have a detrimental outcome as a result of this. Even the town itself wouldn't. I think that I made for a quality resident and citizen. I grew up here in Bellingham. This helps to make this future that we've envisioned a reality. I think that whenever you guys are ready to open it to public comment, I think we do have some neighbors that are still hanging around that can maybe second what I've said there. But again, to think about it in concrete terms, if there is anybody who would be impacted negatively, I don't think so. Are there people in our neighborhood and our family who would be impacted positively? The answer, of course, is yes.
How does the rest of the board feel? Do we want to open up to the public at this point, or do you want more
Yeah, I
discussion?
think we're good. I'd open it up.
Okay. All right, let's open it to the public. Just say your name and address.
This is Gary Basterak. I live at 11 Pearl Street.
Go ahead.
And I've known Ed, I've been here since 1992, so I've known Ed and Suzanne and the family a long time, and they're a great family. So I don't know all these bylaws and stuff, but I'd welcome them to be able to build back there. I just don't understand all the hassle you guys are doing, but I understand there's laws. But for one house versus you let in like Amazons and Home Depots and all this, and nobody gets to really, protest against that. And, I just don't understand all the big deal over one house versus all these companies coming in, disrupting the neighborhood. So that's my 2 cents, but I would let them build there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Are there any other residents?
No.
Okay.
So this is just an observation based on the conversation that we've had here, that I'm not sure whether the outcome of closing the hearing and voting on this would be favorable. And just to let you know that there is always the option to recuse without a finding, so that you could reapply without having to satisfy the 2-year waiting period, etc.
To just withdraw.
Without prejudice, without.
That would be
I appreciate that. I thank you for mentioning that. I guess the question that I have, and it sounds to me, and I'm looking for some guidance from you all. It sounds to me like the problem is the magnitude. Ultimately, is that the problem, that that you have with this plan? The magnitude of the ask, that is?
Well, the magnitude of the square footage, but also the, we still have to take into consideration the hardship factor as well, of course.
The fact that there are two variances.
For me, it's meeting the hardship and choosing this solution versus, looking at other options to get around this. But
Could I have just a minute to talk to the domesticos very briefly? And
I think that's a good idea.
Is that-
Another option that I might suggest is if we want to we can continue this hearing to the next month.
Then you can have.
Well, that's true.
Then that way that gives you more than just 2 minutes to speak with your client. Gives you time to think about it, talk about it,
But
and then you have choices next month.
I think that's appropriate. I think that would be very appropriate. I appreciate that.
I mean, we try to be as fair and do the we can.
You can still talk, if you like, you can still talk to your client.
I think, no, what I'd like to do is ask for a continuance to the next month's meeting.
So I move to grant a continuance till May 5th, 6/7/01.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So. The next.
Locust, it's for the earth removal permit.
This is the Bungay. group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are they here in person or remote?
Take care.
Still here.
Bungay Brook is here remotely. If someone would like to either read the hearing notice or request a waiver of the reading.
So moved.
Request a waiver or?
I make a motion to request a waiver of the reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Motion to open the hearing?
So
Motion open here.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And I believe Mr. Benacasa and his engineer, Jim Almonte and Mike Scott are here.
That's correct. I'm sorry, my video's not working. I didn't realize that. But can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Hear you.
Proceed.
So I know it's late, and Jim, I know we spoke a little while ago about pushing this off if the board is amenable. I don't know if you want to do that or not. We're okay with it if we think at this late hour you want to push it to potentially another date sooner than a month from now.
Mr. Chairman, I did talk to Mr. Almonte about, I know this is a large project that has been vetted with the planning board pretty thoroughly, although, there is a lot of details to sift through, and I'm sure there's a couple people in the public who need to be heard. I know it's getting kind of late, so wasn't sure if this board may be available next Thursday at 6 o'clock. I know that's kind of late notice for some of you, but the planning board is at 7. And I thought it might be more appropriate, but if not, I believe the applicant's welcome to, happy to move forward.
Mr. Chairman, I am not available next Thursday, 14th.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't mean that you guys can't go, but I am not available.
I'm fine.
Yeah, it works for me.
You can cut a form.
Okay.
Can you do Zoom?
No, I won't be able to. Not where I'm gonna be.
Is Jason gonna be around? You around, Jason?
I need to bring my dog to the vet at 6:30 so I could do.
No, that's 2 good excuses today.
Wow.
I got real specific with that one,
You know, we get when we have enough people.
I can do remote though.
Oh, there you go. You got yours.
All right.
You can do remote. That works. I can just set it up remote.
Remote would
and
be
You've got your, you need.
Okay.
All right, so I'll move to continue the hearing until whatever the date is. It's
14th.
April 14th at 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Yes, if that works for everyone.
Second the motion.
All those in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for your patience, everyone, as well.
Before we close up, we're not ready to close yet.
No,
Gentlemen, this
not
minutes.
yet. Laura had provided the minutes. You guys wanna look at those?
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Second.
As written.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Quick things, don't mind me asking, I know I asked Jim, kind of like to find where we stand on the Maple Street project for the mulch pit. Quite a bit of activity going on there, including within the buffer zone. So Jim, they're inside the buffer zone working.
Oh, really? I drove
They're
by
doing,
Saturday when I was in town. I didn't notice that, but I'll certainly request our conservation agent take a closer look at that. Absolutely.
Well, they're doing truck repair within the buffer zone.
No, there you go. Okay, yeah, absolutely. We'll send our agent out there.
Yeah, they've been there all week.
And I did follow up with our town attorney regarding that. And I can talk to you offline, but there's some updated discussions.
Okay. As we back to live meetings, we've had two instances, right? One, the applicants were here in person, and another one, they were on Zoom. I find it very difficult having that on Zoom. Can we request that the applicants be in person? How's the
Well,
law
how we're
working?
doing it is most of the boards are doing both to give the option.
Okay.
Because a lot of the people travel a distance. So your board can determine however you want to do that. But I think what you need to keep in mind is for a lot of people, it works easier for them, like for next meeting if Jason can't. So I just think we need to think about both options. Being there, if you need to use them. I mean, you can say you want the applicant in here, but again, if we had Mr. Van Casa, let's say, here tonight, and we basically heard his case for 5 minutes, that's a lot for people to come to say we're going to continue. So I think,
that's true.
Okay.
It's striking a good balance right now.
It's difficult doing over Zoom versus in person, that's all. But
I mean, maybe we could restructure the meeting differently, but we could talk about that another night. Maybe we, give everything a half an hour so that we know we're going to stay on our tasks as far as each case. But like we saw tonight,
That never worked.
It never
We tried
worked,
that.
so.
We did that years back.
Right.
It didn't
But
work.
we
I
also
feel like we might not have, right now, we don't
Right.
have enough space for everyone
Right.
that was online
Right.
and in person.
as a
today.
board, though, we move through stuff fairly quick
Yeah.
overall. We don't like to play
That
with
typically.
Maybe
the
Jim
time.
has
Yeah.
recommendations. Jim, what's your recommendation on this?
On local or remote versus in person?
Or what we've typically been doing is having both, the Zoom
Yeah.
option and
I
the
think
in person.
policy is going to be
Yeah,
option for
yeah.
both.
Yes,
What's that?
They want you here in person.
Art misses you.
Yeah, I'll do the Cape Air flight and to
There
Hopedale.
you go.
Yeah, so I know Karen's working hard on trying to improve the room for better remote participation. I believe she's waiting, like everyone else in this world, waiting for parts and items to come in, and then it should be improved pretty dramatically. I do know at the middle of July, I believe at least the board members will need to be present. The governor hasn't extended it yet. If he may still extend it again. He has extended several other items. But so yeah, as of right now, I think if it works for the board, I do agree with Amy. Especially our peer review engineers and some of the applicants who come a long ways do certainly appreciate it. If it still works for you, if it doesn't, we can certainly take another look at having people come in.
Let's get through the next few months.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
it,
that's-
till July.
sounds
We'll
good.
see what happens. They might say we can't do it anyway.
I'll make a
That's
motion
true.
to adjourn the meeting.
We have a
Oh,
Meeting on the Garrow property, is that gonna be April 14th?
which one?
The removal of the golf course, that's Garrow's property.
Oh,
That's
that,
continued to next week.
Next week.
That is next week at 6.
6.
yes.
I got one complaint about that.
he's got the water from the golf course draining to my swamp. And it's a big black pipe, and a lot of gallons of
Yeah,
water.
and
comes
unfortunately, it's
through
gotta be, you gotta
there.
bring
But
it
he
up at the
hasn't got to
meeting.
open up where it's supposed to be draining, that's blocked.
Yeah, that would be for the, I mean, if you could contact Jim or someone with the town offline, that's probably the best.
What's his name?
avenue.
Yeah,
Jim
so,
Comfort.
so for
Sorry,
drainage, yeah, no problem. Drainage concerns for the existing conditions, yeah, certainly wouldn't be this board. Our Board of Health and or our conservation agent can certainly take a ride out though, and take a look at it. But yeah, if you're welcome to shoot me an email. Amy can give you my contact information, and I can get you in touch with the right people.
Thanks, Jim.
Sounds like it can be dealt with separate
Well,
from
the
this
problem
board.
is, the new owners, I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't want all the water from that location coming into my swamp, because my swamp is growing,
Understand.
because it ain't draining.
Yeah, I think Jim will be a good resource to help
Jim's a good
guide
resource for
you.
you.
I think that's the
He's the right
best.
person.
What's his last name?
Jim Comfort.
Jim Cox?
If you would like to come into the office, I can get you all of the information, you can
Yeah.
tell your concerns, and I can bullet a list
All
and
right.
send it to Jim. Do you know where the planning board office is?
No.
Okay, it's in the town hall here, downstairs. on the fourth floor.
They get it downstairs, this place?
We do.
Should we,
So
motion to
come
close?
in.
I'll make a motion to
Tell me
close.
your concerns.
All those in favor?
We'll
Aye.
up and
All right.
Send it out of the
Thanks.
way.
All right, downstairs.
I won't be
Downstairs,
around
all the way
early.
to
Night,
the-
everyone.